Houston, can you hear me?
We have a problem.
We've no problem. Oh boy. Oh boy. I was doing the Hitler tactics there, doing it the 5-minute countdown, and you want to see what people are saying. Same as Tobin says, get off the toilet, Marty. Get off the toilet.
Hang on, hit flush.
Hold on. 3, 2, here we go. We're there. Oh, there we go. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm not in my usual surroundings.
No, you're somewhere very, very, almost exotic. Almost exotic.
Yeah. I'm in El Paso, Texas. There's Clint Eastwood. No, Clint.
Oh boy!
I'm in El Paso. Well, I'm almost in Mexico, to be fair, because I'll let you see. Just over here. You see the mountain? That's Mexico.
Yes.
That's Mexico. So I'm not I'm not very close to the cartels. So I have to be quite quiet. You have to just take a time. So
that's incredible. That is incredible.
Yeah. Now I might be in El Paso, but hey!
Oh boy, very good.
No need to go. No need to go short-handed. But no. So I'll be here for the next wee while, and then come home. Yeah. So it's very hot here. Just it's very warm. It was actually a lot sunnier, and then you come on and it went cloudy, which I don't know. I think that's maybe.
I know.
I think that's maybe.
I know. It actually. Oh, it looks like Fiddler on the Roof. What was done with that? Did somebody shake that or something like that?
I don't know. It was
like that.
I don't know. That went a bit wrong. Hang on. That over here. Hang on. All right. So I'm in El Paso, and I've been trying out a couple of locals. TX Bourbon, which we have an interview.
Yeah, we interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, didn't we?
Yeah, we did an interview a couple of weeks ago. We'll get that sorted out later. And then we've got this, which is a bit strange. El Mexico, Whisky de Mexico.
Abasolo? How do you say that? Abasolo?
Abasolo, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we'll go with, because we're actually in Texas, so we'll go with wee Texas Bourbon. TX Bourbon. Which, if you don't know anything about them, you can look them up. They're actually quite interesting distillery. We've got an interview coming up with Rob Arnold, who's the former head distiller there. So, yeah. Now,
Connor's saying, I hope those cans are chilled.
There's your answer. No, they're not.
No. So that's your view. That's the view behind you. Those mountains are actually Mexico, aren't they? They really are.
That's Mexico. Yesterday I went hiking. I went up into the Franklin Mountains over here, which are actually the sort of tail end of the Rocky Mountains in America, in the US. And I went hiking up there, and I got up to the top, and I was like, up to the bit where I was climbing up to. It wasn't up to the top. And I thought, right, I'll take my t-shirt off to get a bit of vitamin D, And well, I was sort of thinking that everybody in Mexico will be looking up and go, oh, there's a gringo at the top there, because I'm about the whitest person around here. I mean, it's, that sort of blue colour that Irish people are whenever they go places, because their bodies haven't seen the sun for months. So, yeah, so I was up there. It's very nice, very nice. It was a long haul getting here, but it was well worth it.
Okay.
So I hope everybody's well. Yeah, I'm going to be overwintering here for the next wee while. But I was in the ale house last night. Had 100 different beers on it, just on tap.
100? What did the Guinness taste like last night?
Pure dung, pure absolute. It tasted like camel sweat after the camel had been out on a rip on tenants or something. It was awful. Just
right.
Yeah.
How do they manage to make it so bad? It doesn't travel well, does it? Really?
It doesn't travel well, and I don't think they pour it all that well either. It doesn't help. If there's no poured right, it's never good. that TX bourbon. Everybody knows I'm not a big bourbony fan, but it's nice. It's not bad. It's pleasant enough. So it is. So yeah.
Is it sweet? Is it that one?
Aye, all bourbons are sweet, but that's a little bit. It's a little bit higher. It's 45%. It's a little bit higher ABV. Takes out a bit of the sweetness, which always helps.
Okay. Good. Well, we've got Bimber Distillery featuring tonight. We managed to film it when we were in London.
When we were on our travels in London.
But in the meantime, I shall hit the theme tune.
Excellent stuff. The news. Now, there's really only been one thing Irish whiskey fans have been talking about all week, and that's the bottle of Redbreast 12 that sold at the Irish Whiskey Auction the other day. I say it finished last Monday because it's supposed to finish on a Sunday night, but what Anthony and the gang down at Irish Whiskey Auctions have started to do is if you bid, it extends it by another 20 minutes. And I sat up to nearly 2 o'clock in the morning. I think it was 2 o'clock in the morning.
Were you bidding on it? No. People will think that.
No. Because as you can see from the picture, it ended up going for €26,500, which is, just to put it in context, £22,500 or $30,000, which far outstripped the estimate. Far outstripped my budget, but the estimate was about €12,000 or something like that. So now Anthony looks tired, but I assume he's quite happy with the fees that came in of this, because this is a one of a kind bottling. A lot of people were surprised by this, and I think, to be fair, some of these bottles are well undervalued. I mean, this is a one-off. It's highly collectible because Redbreast's highly collectible, and to have this, I mean, it's a unicorn bottling, as people talk about. It's not going to be anybody else has it. So if you want to have as nice a collection of Redbreast as possible, that's the one you want. Now, €26,500. A lot of people would be really thinking that this is a massive price for this kind of thing. Personally speaking, I'm not sure that it is for something that's highly collectible and extremely rare. But it's going to the States, I'm led to believe. And yeah, so
did you bring it there? It sounds increasingly like you brought it there, Marty. It does indeed.
No.
Yeah.
So a nice Christmas present for Anthony as well. I'm sure he wishes he had an awful lot more of those to sell. But that's the point. But no, it went up to 2 o'clock in the morning, and I think there was probably quite a lot of people sat up to watch just to see how far it was going. What they did, people bidding on it, waited until it was like 30 seconds to the end of the bid time, and then stuck in another bid. So that's why it went on so long, and it was nice to watch, because you kind of felt as if you were watching something a bit of interest, a little bit special. It's a special bottling.
No, it's not that special, because it might do it again.
Well, anyone who's interested to watch something else, Whisky.auction has a bottle. It's not just the same, but it's not dissimilar, of 1930s Redbreast. Now, I'm not sure. I'm going to say that this is very, very, very rare. I don't know whether it would be a unique bottling, because you can never really say this unless there's it's issued as a unique bottling. There might be one of these out somewhere in an old pub somewhere in Donegal or somewhere. But it'll be interesting to watch this one as well, just to see where it goes. Could do something very similar, or as a lot of these bottles have done in the past, not go that high, not as high as you might expect them to. But Redbreast is very collectible, so it could do. And people coming up to Christmas, obviously. Coming up to Christmas, people want to spend money. Now, when I showed you this, because obviously you went to bed because you're dead lazy, and you said, "Well, is it worth that?" And I said, "Well, it's worth whatever anybody's willing to pay." There was an auction finished last night where pretty much everything that was there was a unicorn bottling. That was the point of it. Now, this was Sotheby's, and it's the Distillers 1 of 1 auction, it's called. It's to raise money for disadvantaged young people in Scotland. And the participating distillers donate ultra rare whiskey and experiences. Now, Sotheby's also donate their, they say part of their auction fees. I would imagine probably a substantial part of their auction fees. They're not going to lose money at it, I wouldn't have thought, but they're probably not going to make a huge amount of it. Now, there were 42 lots ranging from an unbelievable Ladyburn distillery. But now, Ladyburn only operated, by the way, from 1966 to 75. And the bottle they sold was a 54-year-old 1966 hand-signed David Bailey labelled photograph of John Lennon on it. Now, it went for 81,250 quid. Now, that's just the auction price. I don't know what the auction fees are for this kind of stuff. But, I mean, massive amount of money. Top of the bill was a Talisker cask of distinction 1978 with artwork by Callum Innes. It's 43-year-old now. It's still maturing. And after you purchase it, they bring it up. That's the casket you'll be buying. So he's decorated the butt. This is his artwork. He's very much like this sort of sectional art. You can go on and check him out. I don't know a huge amount about the artist, to be fair, but he's very well respected and so on. Now, when you buy it, you can mature it for another 5 years at your own request, or you can bottle it straight away. And the buyer also gets a tour of the warehouse to go and see their cask, which I think is very big of them, because it's a refill American. It's a refill American oak hogshead, number 3943, and it's estimated to yield at the current 52.9%. It'll have 148 bottles in it, and they'll do the packaging. This is the packaging quite limited, and it's sold for. Bear in mind, you get a free tour of the warehouse to go and check it out. It's sold for £625,000, which is it's nice of them to throw in a free tour. Now, working that out, not including the fees, because I didn't check out what the fees would be. The sale price you would get your bottles, it would work out about £4,222 a bottle. Just go and dividing it by the 148. That's $5,500 or €5,000. So yeah. So when people say, is these other bottles worth it? Is the 12-year-old from the 1920s worth it? Well, how many bottles of Irish whiskey survived from the 1920s? That's like I say all the time. How many 40-year-old Irish whiskies are there? There's not very many of them. So, yeah. Another interesting one, a Bowmore 51. Now, for the Talisker, you're buying a cask. Now, it's a 43-year-old cask. There was one bottle, Bowmore, a 51-year-old Bowmore Onyx. And it ended up selling for, on its own, one bottle, £400,000.
That's a lot of money in anybody's language, isn't it?
It's incredible. I mean, it's just this idea of whether these bottles, these bottles from the 20s or whatever, are they worth this money? Whatever anybody's willing to pay is what they're worth, and that's the Bowmore. It's a 1 of 1, so there isn't any more of them. So.
Beautiful bottle. What's that? What's that stylized after? It looks like bog oak or something like that. There, it's misshapen. It's incredible. I mean, I love the bottle alone.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is just incredible. The estimate for it was 100,000, and it ended up going as I say, for 400,000. It's just, I mean, it's just an incredible thing, you know. And these things just carry on. So people are doing them as investments, and it's just interesting to see where they are and what's going for.
I mean, but like, if it's going for $250,000, can it go up much more?
Yeah, why not? Why not? I mean, the people from the States are starting to collect Irish whiskey. People from Asia are starting, China and Japan are starting to collect this kind of stuff. And I mean, lots of people have lots of very, 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 very deep pockets, you know. So
Yeah.
it's an incredible thing to behold, and they raised a vast amount of money. Congratulations to all the distilleries who participate. Diageo give the Talisker for they give it for free. Diageo can afford this, by the way. You know, it's not going to wipe them out by any stretch of the imagination. But the thing is, they still do it, and you know, give them their applause for doing these kind of things, because yeah, why not?
A lot of comments coming in tonight. A lot of people watching. I think being in Texas, it's going to be the home of Elon Musk's outfit. So I reckon Facebook will watch this very carefully while you're in Texas tonight.
Oh, why not? That's right. That's right. Is that not where Zuckerberg's from? Is he not from Texas or something?
I think he might. He might be. You know.
He's not here anyway.
Connor's asking, is that Bowmore a single cask? Is it?
I don't think so. It says an exceptional, rare, and entirely unique 51-year-old single malt. Bowmore Onyx is the encapsulation of time with more than half a century of craftsmanship quality, a character embedded in its genesis and story. This one-of-one creation is presented in a striking, hand-blown 1.4-litre black glass vessel, which takes its inspiration from the incredible terroir of its island home. So it doesn't actually say, but it gives you a little bit of info. It's distilled in the 17th of February 1970, 48%. So yeah, that's just the listing. So is it a single cask? I would assume so. That's really, I'm sure if you're going to pay 400 grand, you would maybe contact Sotheby's to just check a bit more in depth. But yeah, it just goes to show you what price these things can go for.
Indeed. Peter Stewart, sorry I'm late. How's Texas?
Gorgeous. It's cooled down. I wouldn't say it's nippy. I saw a girl here the other day. She's walking up. I'm walking in jeans and shorts and a t-shirt. She's wearing a big coat and a woolly hat, and it's about 17 degrees. It's like, okay, spot the Irishman.
So remember, if you're watching tonight, make sure you say hello. Remember to comment, like, and share. Tag your friends and then hit share and get them in the act as well, especially if they're stateside. What time is it there, Marty, actually, with you?
Just after 3. 7 hours behind Ireland.
7 hours difference. So that's good. And people were saying your internet's far better tonight than it is.
That's not a shock. Glenarm's internet's never that good. Somebody said to me the other day, if they get the fast internet in, would you consider getting it in Glenarm? Yes, because our internet's absolute dunk.
But the strange thing is, the first fibre optic telephone on the line was put in by STC between Ballymena and Ballymoney, which is not a stone's throw from Glenarm. Yet you have internet that Virgin wouldn't even promise there in El Paso tonight. I know it's always the way. I know
it is.
You can't win. You can't win.
Right. Moving on. Irish distillers announced this week that they are going to invest €13 million in a new visitor complex, the visitor centre. But it's also going to be have new tours, new shopping area, bar, cafe, restaurant, etc., etc. Work starting immediately, and it should be finished for their 200th anniversary in 2025. So it'll be interesting to see, because Irish distillers, obviously the big heavyweight of Irish whiskey, and in some ways they're playing catch up to some of the more nimble little guys. So it'll be interesting to see what the visitor experience is going to be.
Yeah, of course, if you get people through, you get people interested in the product, they buy it there and then, they maybe get something they can only get there at the visitor centre, then they go away and say, where were you? Irish distillers, and somebody says, who or what's that? And next thing you know, you've got a new fan of their products.
Well, the thing is, it's like when we went down to Silky there a few weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago. The guys that went down got to meet James, got to see just the layout, obviously how well impressed it was, where it is, and you've got fans there that whenever they're opening a whiskey, they can talk about it, they can buy it, they can share it with their friends and say, "Oh, I was there," and it was well. But, and that's kind of the point. I see Seamus is saying they need a car park. Yes, they would. I haven't been down for a few years now, but there's lots of stuff that they could do.
There's somebody saying Old Middleton Distillery closed in 1975, 200th anniversary.
Connor, we don't let things like that stop us in the whiskey world. Really, let's be honest. Bushmills 1608, McConnell's 1778. It's not really true. We just sort of brush over it for the tourist market. There's lots of stuff that they just put names on, but that's what they're saying. It's the 200th anniversary of the Old Middleton Distillery, and that's what they are. It's a miracle they don't start putting stuff on it for like that when it was started on some of the bottles. Old Middleton. Because everybody else does it, so I don't see why they wouldn't. You register a company in February and then put it's been going since 1704. I mean, at some point somebody's going to come up with, we'll just name it Julius Caesar 10 BC. Doesn't really make any difference. But no, it's good. But one thing that is accurate is this week was the 45th anniversary of Billy Layton working for Irish Distillers. So congratulations to Billy. Actually, congratulations to Irish Distillers for hanging on to him, because there's lots of these guys coming to America. They could quite easily come here and people will pay them an awful lot of money. So yeah, it's nice to see. Just a bit of background if anybody doesn't know about Billy. Billy started as a trainee accountant with Irish Distillers before moving on to production, where he was in charge of getting stuff ready for pre-bottling. Then moved on to maturing stock and blending. Now he's been the head distiller for 10 years. And a gentleman he is too. So yeah.
That's a good track. That's a good, very, very, very good track record indeed. It is indeed. Now, who's this baldy guy then?
Who's this baldy guy? Are you allowed to say people are baldy these days, Justin?
I just said it. Hard luck.
This guy, this is the new chief executive of the Scotch Whisky Association, Mark Kent, and he's taken over from Karen Betts. So he's a former diplomat, and in order to negotiate all the different the problems with the Scottish whisky and say the Americans and so on and so forth, his formally was an ambassador for the UK to Argentina. So I'm going to say he's good at conflict resolution. so yeah, he's going to be there. He's also a former ambassador to Thailand and Vietnam. So yeah, good luck to him. Scottish Whisky Association has 71 members, some of which have multiple distilleries. So yeah, it'll be good to see. Obviously, Scotch face much more competition. So like every other industry, they're always going to be having to run to stay in the same place in some regards. But yeah, good luck to him. Now,
we're getting a lot of questions in tonight. People are saying, Stephen Quinn saying, Tullamore is the longest running consecutive distillery, 1780s. I think, listen, it'll be handbags at dawn next if we keep this up. It will be.
Well, put it like this. Tullamore is probably one of the newer distilleries, because where they built it in its second incarnation on top of the old ruined one, they've now shifted it away out of town. I haven't been down since they've done that because of COVID and whatnot. So it's actually one of the newer distilleries now, because they just keep changing it. In terms of actual continual names, it's probably kept going. I would imagine Bushmills is probably right up there, even though it's relatively recent. But the company was registered in the late 18th century. But the distillery itself dates, because it all burnt down at one point in the 1840s, 50s. So yeah,
Yeah. There's Seamus. He's agreeing with us. Bushmills is the oldest in Ireland. Well, yeah,
it'll be the continuous company, but I mean, it's went through major upheavals and changes and so on and so forth. So this idea of sort of some link to the past is it's much more of a fairy tale than it is anything else, but it makes for a nice story.
Well, I think Bushmills is the best claim of the whole lot because it's still there, you know.
Yeah, well, but there was more than one distillery in Bushmills. And the oldest building, as Conor comes out with, the oldest building is the old John Locke distillery down in Copenhagen. But you know, it was a tire that was used as like a tire factory, a tire plant or whatever you call it at one point.
And of course, if you go on to our Anchor channel or our podcast channel, you'll find an in-depth there about the old Locke distillery and all the rest of them.
Yeah. Well, this is it. Now, yeah. So yeah.
And before you jetted off to America, we managed to jet off somewhere else.
We were in London, baby, and yeah, it was an experience. And one of the more exciting distilleries over the last while, I mean, certainly generated a lot of interest when they first came out, was Bimber. So I've been wanting to go there for a period of time, and we ended up. Justin was doing Navigator. So he took me through a graveyard on the way to it, which was a bit disconcerting, but nonetheless, it was pretty good.
Yes, bear in mind this was filmed at Halloween, but here we go with the full video. Stick around. The show runs for another 35 minutes. Remember, we're still here, so comment, like, and share, and we'll put your messages up on screen. Here we go.
And Marty walked me through a graveyard, and I just watched The Exorcist the night before. And he'll do anything to get the Bimber whiskey.
Justin was doing directions. Justin walked us through the graveyard. I didn't know where I was going, but luckily enough, we've ended up in the Bimber distillery, which I'm going to get tasting some new Mckay spirit. We like that, don't we, Justin?
We do.
Now, we're joined by Matt Mckay, who is, well, you've got a lot of different, you wear a number of different hats, my friend.
Sure.
You are marketing and publicity.
Yeah.
You are cask selection and
cask assessment, cask selection, product development, all-round talky whiskey person, whiskey geek, label writer. Yeah. There's only 8 of us here, and so we've all got to pitch in and do the things that we're skilled at. Yeah.
But small operations, I think everybody has to be a sort of jack of all trades with these things. Now, your background.
Yep.
Before you came to Bimber, we'll get to Bimber in a little second, but you personally, you've worked in whiskey for how long?
Good question. So I've only actually worked in whiskey since I've been at Bimber, so 2.5 years. My background is in marketing and PR for biomedical science publishing. So I've spent best part of 25 years working in technical, biological, transport, engineering PR. But I've been around the whiskey world for quite a long time now, writing a website called thedramble.com. That's how I ended up at Bimber. And now I've been here actually working in the industry for 2.5 years now.
2.5 years.
Yep.
Now, Bimber, we are in London. Right, how did Bimber, first of all, what's the name? Where did Bimber name come from?
Sure. So the name Bimber literally means moonshine in Polish. The name comes from our Polish heritage. I'm not Polish, I'm a Londoner, but a lot of the staff working here and our founders, they're originally from Poland. Our master distiller, Darius, his father and grandfather were moonshiners, making spirit illicitly in Poland, hiding in bushes, in forests, in basements, to avoid the taxman.
Yeah.
But the name Bimber in Poland, it just means like white dog, spirit.
Pochin, something like Pochin.
Pochin, exactly the same thing. But the name was adopted here because it is very reflective of a lot of the processes that we use here. Everything is really old school, really traditional, and really hands-on.
Yeah.
And so to take the name moonshine harks back to A, the fact of that moonshining history, but B, how we are making spirit here in London, which is, hands-on, no computerization, small batch, really laborious processes which you can only really do if you're making product in a small scale like this. It doesn't scale up. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
We've already done a little tour of the distillery, and if you're a corporation, if you're a corporate guy, this would probably keep you awake for days thinking about how really inefficient this is. Bimber started as a craft distillery in London, and that's important to you to be in London too. Why?
It's a product of who we are and where we've come from. All of us who work here live around the area.
Yeah.
Darius and his wife Evelina are founders. They have a carpentry, building and architecture firm just up the street. Some of those skills and resources in terms of the engineering, the woodworking are really useful here in terms of that cooperage. But all of us, it's a very multicultural distillery now, but all of us have one thing in common, and that we all consider ourselves to be Londoners.
Yeah, good. Now, Bimber is a field to bottle distillery.
Sure.
You source all your grain from one field or one farm?
From one farm.
One farm?
Fordham and Allen, down in Basingstoke. So we work with the farmer. We visited roughly 24 farms to select the right one for us. And by select, I mean it's not just about the quality of the grain.
Yeah.
As a small distillery, we don't have grain silos. We can't store loads of grain here. Deliveries come in every week, every single week. So it's about having that relationship with a farmer who, A, makes the best quality grain that we can find for what we want to make, but B, is prepared to make deliveries to us every single week because we just don't have the area to store it en masse.
Yeah. Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime grain deliveries. They'll drone it in.
Oh, they'll drone it in.
Drone it in.
Bezos will maybe land it on his spacecraft somewhere. So, now, the malting is done for you by
Warminster Malting.
Warminster Maltings.
UK's oldest maltster, based over near Bristol. So the journey sort of starts far west of here. It moves a little bit further west, where that malt is then dried, but then it's not milled.
No.
A lot of distilleries you'll see, particularly in Scotland, you'll see two types of mills. It will either be a green mill or a red mill. So a Bobby mill or a Porteous mill, which grinds it, and then they'll show you the box and the separation. We don't do that. We simply crack open the grain so that the husks are completely intact and put into the mash there.
Yeah.
That allows us to create a really, really clear wort. That's what we're looking for. We're looking to a certain clarity to our whiskey, which, you'll taste when you taste it, both the wash and then the new made spirit.
Yeah. Now it's cracked as opposed to milled, so you're not getting the flour. You're not getting
We're getting some of it,
you're not getting,
but not as much.
Not as much. No.
Yeah, not as much. Yeah.
So that comes down and it's delivered here.
Yep.
You then run it through your mash tun.
Yep. Half ton mash tun.
2
sparge waters, not 3. We get as much good quality wort as we need in terms of the convertible starches from just using 2 sparge waters in that half ton mash tun.
Okay.
And again, as we spoke about earlier, cracking the grains and not milling it creates a very different density of that grain bed, more than likely allowing a lot of that sparge water access to all of those grains to get them moist to allow for good conversion.
Now you're not doing your 3rd sparge water.
No.
Again, if you're a corporate guy, you might want to turn off now because this will scare you. You're missing out on, again, that sugar, that content that you're pulling out of that. Because people go for efficiency, they go for maximum yield. You're not doing that at that point. You're already cutting that.
We're not about yield, we're about flavour.
Yeah, not about yield, all about flavour.
Yep.
Taken from there. Now, where does it then go?
Like every distillery, once you've made a wort, then you need to convert it into some sort of alcohol. So it goes over into our fermenters. You might just see them in the back there, you probably can. 7 3,000 litre American oak custom-made washbacks that we constructed here at Bimber. They run for 168 hours, 7 days. What happens is the primary yeast, which is a in-house combination of distillers and bakers yeast, so a sort of a customized yeast that we like to use there. That runs for 4 days in terms of the growth and the dying down of that yeast. However, the washbacks are open-topped. You can probably just about see them there. There's no lids on them. The combination of the wild yeast in the air and the fact that the American oak has some porosity to it, so there's bacteria in there, means that we get a secondary malolactic fermentation.
Yeah.
So the ferment does run for 7 days. For the first 4, it's on the yeast, it's primary, it's quite aggressive, it foams up, as you'd expect.
Yeah.
The next few days, just the odd bubble, but it is still fermenting.
Yeah.
In doing that, we're building out loads and loads of fruity ester flavours.
Yeah.
You'll find that if you ever get into wild yeast beers, Saison styles, spontaneous beers, you get these big fruity flavours. So
When you see this, okay, this is coming out, this is taken from the fermenters, and it's very sour. There's a cidery note to it, lots of cidery elements to it that are popping up, even a sort of pear cidery notes coming through on it too. It's really quite, on the nose it's quite like that, on the palate it's quite tart.
Yep.
It almost tastes quite bitter, but there's sweet elements coming through on it as well. So yeah, now it's taken from here, and then it's run through the still.
Sure, so we run 2 stills, a lembic design made by Hoga in Portugal, both 1,000 litres currently. The stills are turned on using steam, get up to temperature, and then we kick in direct fire. Both stills run on direct fire. The objective being somewhat similar to cooking a steak, that we burn the sugars, we burn the heavier compounds, the congeners, into the spirit. So you get that sort of chariness.
Yeah.
It all forms in the bottom of the still. It makes for quite a difficult cleaning operation.
I can
We
imagine.
don't have cleaning in place. We don't riddle out the stills. But it's fundamental to that process of making Bimber, that direct fire builds body, it builds texture into that new made spirit whilst you're in the still.
Now, your cut points.
Yep.
You've mentioned to me about the cut points. They're quite narrow. For a start, you don't redistill the heads.
Yeah, heads are not redistilled at all. We simply throw them away. That's not a great deal of liquid. It sounds like we're throwing away whiskey, and I guess notionally we are. It's a very small amount of liquid.
Yeah.
But again, we don't believe in making efficiency savings for the expense of flavour. And by doing that, we get the exact profile that we're looking for.
Yeah.
Cut points very, very narrow. We don't dig into the tails at all. That would make a very different whiskey again. So what we have is effectively a ferment that, because it's open-topped and long, is dirty. It's a dirty style of ferment.
Yeah.
A distillation regime that starts off dirty because we're burning in congeners and heavier compounds into the spirit. But then because of the immense amount of copper conduct, because of the fact that we've customized the shell and tube condensers with more copper, because the cut points are narrow, we end up with a textured, impactful spirit, but one that isn't dirty anymore, one that is now promoting the fruitiness and the lightness of the notes that we build during fermentation, the fruity notes that you identified.
Now this is the new make. So new make coming out, and it's 63.5. And on the nose, these two, there's no real similarity. A lot of the sourness has disappeared. And what's coming through is, again, there's quite cereal heavy, lots of cereal, but then it lifts very quickly. Now obviously at 63.5 it needs water to open it up to bring through that. But again, it's quite sweet. It's moved from the sort of sour cidery over to much more sweet cider, and lots of esters there too.
Yep.
Now, we'll take a little sip. 63.5%, guys. Don't be drinking too much of this anytime you get a chance.
You'd be surprised. We get quite. I mean, we bottle this. We get quite a few people who they do like to drink it. So we don't do much of it because this is whiskey that could have been and isn't. But we do some of it because people. We're very proud of the new make. We feel it underpins everything that we do. And so we're very happy to show it off to anyone who's interested.
It is very drinkable. There's no two ways about that. And it's very drinkable. Really quite sweet.
Yep.
You know, it comes across in the fermenters as being these sorry notes, but once they're distilled, it sweetens up really, really quite well. And it's got a lovely oily mouthfeel to it as well. Little notes of mint as well coming through at the start. Fruity on the finish, quite strong on the finish now. It's quite spicy on the finish at that. So I'm going to add a little bit of water just to pull that down and see the oils in it.
and you can see the oils moving about. So that I always like doing this because the oils is really where all the flavour is, you know. And again, it just opens it up and it gives you all them sort of tropical fruit notes coming through there, more banana flavours and all those esters. Now, Bimber is doing their caskings, and you said to me you're a bourbon kind of guy, bourbon cask guy. You like bourbon guy. You like that. You like your bourbon. Do you like your sweet vanilla notes?
Not necessarily. I'm much more of a refill ex-bourbon kind of guy. So first fill ex-bourbon, it can impart a lot of sweet vanilla, custard, toffee. That can be nice, but no, I'm just much more into calmer whiskey casks, often for longer periods, where the spirit can shine.
Yeah,
you know.
Bimber is a spirit-driven.
Bimber is a spirit-driven whiskey. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm very interested in the fermenters being of American oak, because this is really quite unusual, because you're starting to impart the flavour from the oak straight away. A lot of the time they would use larch or something like that. You can see them using different types of wood. So the American oak, it's the idea to put flavour in the fermentation as much as possible.
You're going to get some flavour in, because it is porous. The idea more is the fact that it's porous means that bacteria can inhabit the wood.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
So they're lightly charred on the inside, breaks up the surface. So, yeah, you're going to get a little bit of flavour of that wood into it, but it's going to be pretty minuscule.
Yeah.
But what we need is a pleasant environment for bacteria to live in to provide for that secondary malolactic fermentation. That's more what it's about.
Yeah. Now, in terms of casking, bourbon casks, primarily to start with, is it full maturation in bourbon casks? Is that where you see it most of the time, or do you see?
There's all sorts of things going on now. We started off, it was first fill ex-bourbon, full maturation. Pedro Jimenez, quite lucky to get some amazing Solera cast for Pedro Jimenez, very unusual. Oloroso sherry, port, and then virgin casks. That's what we started with.
Yeah.
So a lot of the fills, a lot of the early casks are those. From then, we have expanded into refill ex-bourbon. It'll be a while before you see those. 7 years, 8 years until those come to a point when we'll unveil them, but we're filling those from the ones that we've disgorged. More styles of sherry, so Fino, Moscatel, Palo Cortado, and then some more unusual things. So rum, Imperial Stout, which is my little baby, which is going to be revealed quite soon. Starting to play around with some wine casks, scary. Cognac is on the menu. So we're at a point where we know where the spirit works, and we know it works really well in ex-bourbon. And there's not many distilleries, unless they choose to take a sherry-forward view of things, that aren't going to do a lot of filling in ex-bourbon, because it provides such a great basis to play around with. When we have all these cask types, often what we'll do is we'll do a first fill in that cask, provide a bottle of first fill whatever, Moscatel, port. We'll then take it, and then we'll either refill it, or we'll re-rack the ex-bourbon into it for a finish. So we have options of playing around there. And then what we're going to be starting to look at over the years to come will be actually combining those casks together. So not just vatting ex-bourbon or sherry, but taking ex-bourbon and sherry in a proportion, vatting them together. So yeah, it's quite a playground of things. When we started off, it was a much smaller crayon box, because you need to make things that work. What we tend to do with casks is we'll take two, maybe 6 of them, and we'll do a few full term. We'll do a few finishes. We'll see what we like. We don't bottle anything we don't like. There's a few hidden away in the back there. They'll never be seen. They only ever come out when we have an event on and people say, what have you got that's weird? And we say, try that.
There you go.
And it's weird, but we're not going to bottle it because we're not happy with it. No, it's not good enough.
Everybody's happy.
But yeah, so we've got an increasing number of crayons now. So we try it out in a small selection of casks. And then if we like it, so for instance, the Imperial Stout's gone very well. So we've now got more back over with the brewery, with Brew by Numbers down in South London. We'll do more of that. Others have not worked as well as we like. We won't do more of that. So it's all a very big learning experience in terms of where your spirit works in what type of precursor cask.
Now, I think whenever you start these things, you basically have your primary colours, and as you progress, you get much deeper palette, and you can work with it. Now you're marrying cask. You're marrying vat. This for me is probably the most exciting thing that I saw today. Explain what it is.
Sure. So you might have heard of something similar, the Balvenie ton. The idea is rather than getting an IBC and just tipping loads of casks in and swilling it around, is to actually have a larger vessel made of wood to give a really great environment for marrying casks together. So our marrying vat is a very similar style and design to our fermenters. It's not open topped, it's not temperature controlled, we're not fermenting in there.
Yeah.
We keep it around 1/5 fill at all times with ex-bourbon casks. And then what we do is when we're looking to make a product that is either ex-bourbon, such as our small batch, or is based from ex-bourbon, i.e. where we're finishing, we'll disgorge casks into it, we'll leave them for a few months. Whiskey when it comes out of a barrel is not at its best. When you visit a distillery and go to a warehouse, a lot of what you are tasting there is your own hype and excitement. But believe me, if you take that whiskey straight out of a barrel and you take a sample of it, you try that one, if you could somehow be at the same place at the same time, I guarantee you, the one that's just had a few weeks to calm down, that hasn't got this shock of coming out the bottle, will be better. And so what we're doing with this vat is we're doing that for you. So rather than just tipping it in and giving it a mix around, it sits in the vat for a few months, it marries all of those different cask styles. They all might be ex-bourbon, but there is a certain style and idiosyncrasy to each of them.
Yeah.
It gives them all time to intermingle, to relax, and to come together as one whole.
Yeah. So I like that sort of Solera-esque appeal to it. I like that because it carries on. And for me, I do an infinity bottle. For most people, they're
Good
infinity
fun.
bottles.
Yep.
They're good fun. But for me, it's basically a bottle of memories.
Yep.
And it just carries on through, and you never really lost anything you've ever put in it. So, yeah, now, we're going to come across and do a tasting. Justin, do you want to come and join us for a little bit of whiskey?
Oh, I think I'll have to for this.
So, now, this is Midlands Whisky Festival, 10th anniversary, finished in ex-bourbon casks.
Full-term ex-bourbon.
Full-term ex-bourbon.
Full term. So this is the bottle we produced for this year's Midlands Whisky Festival. Full-term ex-bourbon. This is going to be pushing about 5 years old. It's going to be not 5, but nearly. Next year we'll be releasing whiskies that will be 5 years of age. This one very close. It spent its whole life in a first fill ex-bourbon barrel. Because it's a single cask, we offer it cask strength, 58.7%. So got a bit of punch, will take a bit of water. Yep. The profile, without giving you tasting notes, I generally let visitors do that rather than I do that. You can find my tasting notes all over the bottles and website.
I must be getting good at this, Marty, because I could tell that was a bourbon one.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm supposed to pay the dumb fool. Beginning to get this.
You're never as dumb as you look.
The profile is, for me, very much what we do at Bimber. The wash you've seen talked about, the spirit that you've seen and talked about in an ex-bourbon barrel.
Yeah.
This is what Bimber's all about. Yes, there's lots of different angles. We can add sweetness from sherry, Madeira, port, whatever. But this is the core of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Of bringing out those fruity flavors with a deeply textural spirit, quite a lot of spice, and, a punchy delivery and texture that really belies the age of this whiskey, which if it had a statement on it, it would say 4.
Yeah, well, on the nose, it's not as sweet as I possibly was thinking it was going to be. It's not as sweet driven on the nose. There's nice cask influence there that is coming through, but there are nice deep fruity notes. Almost cooked apple rather than the sweet apple.
I think that's for me a function of maturity.
Yeah.
When you get a new make spirit or a very young whiskey, normally, you're often going to get bright ethyl acetone, pear drops. Almost
Sharp.
The precursors of those flavour.
Almost acidic, sharp, sweet notes. Yeah.
Sherbet sweetness, artificial flavourings, and that's how a lot of whiskies start, and then they gradually develop into deeper, darker, or brighter and juicier versions of themselves. You can go many ways. For us, it's got that. It's got a darkness. I think cooking apple is personally a good one.
Yeah.
Brown sugars, but it's moved a long way in 4 years from those. Yes, it's pear drop. It's sort of apple essence.
Yeah.
But it's taken on quite a lot more now.
It has much more depth of sugar for. I know you say it's a 5-year-old whiskey.
Nearly, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's got more depth to it than 5-year-old whiskey. This is a young spirit. When you're casking this, is there? I know you're looking to go sort of 7 years. You talked about that earlier. Is there a chance that the cask will maybe take away too much from the actual spirit?
That's exactly what we're doing when it comes to the combination between first fill and refill casks. There's this happy medium, and everyone's different. I'm a very sort of spirit-led guy. I like my craft influence pretty much on the down low.
Yeah.
Bimber brings with it both.
That's
in quite a lot.
That's
but there will be a point when we as a distillery decide that the cask influence is too much.
too much.
For me, it's probably going to be around 8 years. That's when I think this profile is going to be amazing, but it's sort of on the peak. You know, the cask influence is really, really starting to come forward. That's why we have the refill casks, where, you know, those bad boys, they're going to take us through 12, 15, 18, depending on how much activity is left in there. And so we've got both. We've got these casks that are going to deliver punchy whiskey, which belies its age now.
Yeah.
And then we've got casks which will deliver a more subtle influence and allow that spirit to mature with a lessened wood influence over a longer period of time.
What kind of money's in a bottle like that?
How do you mean?
How much does it cost?
I don't know how much Midlands Festival sold it for. We sell most of our single cask releases for around 80 to 85 pounds, that sort of level. The small batch releases are 65 to about 68. The underground releases are more. We have to pay money to Transport for London to do those.
Oh, they need their money. They need their cut.
Well, nothing is ever for free.
But it's
Nothing is ever
affordable
for free.
quality. That's the market you're aiming for. Yeah.
I've actually put a little water in that because I think that works much better with a little bit of water in it. And if anything, it's actually spiced it up on the finish.
Adding water to most whiskey brings out the cask.
It's spiced it up a little bit on the finish, much more than I thought it probably would have done. That's lovely. It's really, really nice.
Thank you. So yeah, there's your development. Spirit, 4 and a bit years. And that's Bimber.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Very, 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 very nice.
Thank
That
you.
is very nice. Now, ex-bourbon. Now, you mentioned underground. We can't not mention this. This is sort of the collectible series that you're doing.
It is a series, yeah. Yep.
And how far in are we with that? And
At the moment, in bottle, only the first 4.
4?
There will be 44 releases in the whole series, not all 272 stations. By my calculation, if we did do all the stations, that would take us nearly 17 years. That's a bit too much for us. I hope to be retired at that point. Let's see. We've done the first 4, which you can see up there.
Yeah.
The next 4 we've just announced. They'll be coming very shortly. So we'll be doing in batches of 4, probably 3 or 4 times a year over the course of the contract that we have with TFL to do these bottlings of their stations.
Yeah, and I mean, these will be highly collectible. You can't ignore that these days.
Sure.
This is a huge part of the market now.
I have to say, once you've done the underground, you definitely have to get in touch with who is it owns Monopoly and do the Monopoly board. That wouldn't take as long because there's not as many stations, Matt.
It wouldn't, but I think the idea of doing something else where we have to pay a royalty fee, I think that's too much. So we don't mind doing it once. But yeah, the Monopoly is fun, but no.
Do not pass go. Do not collect 200 bottles of...
No, but
I've got another idea for you, Matt, because I always have these good marketing.
Oh, no.
What about theatres of London? That would work.
I've heard it all. If you go online, people love to speculate and just make up stuff about what whiskey distilleries are doing and why they're doing it. And so I've read recently that we're going to do all of the UK airports. I heard about bus routes, and none of this is true at all. We're literally doing these 44 stations, and then we'll do something else, you know. And there are no plans for anything else at the minute. It's quite a lot of work for Bimber as a really small distillery to continue doing what we're doing and do these stations. What a lot of people, when they first came out, didn't realise was we've not stopped doing anything that we're doing. These are in addition. There's something else, as it were. So it's quite a lot of work to do all the releases that we're selling at the distillery, that we're selling online, distillery exclusives, the ones for Bimber Club, and these ones. So, yeah, the idea of doing yet more series based around landmarks, I can safely say here and now, no.
So this is the only chance you'll get to do this, okay? Now, the whiskey, you're doing other stuff as well. You started off doing gin. Bimber started doing gin.
We started off before we had Spirit of Age with gin, vodka, and rum. It's a way a lot of distilleries get some revenue in when there's no money to be made from the single malt.
But you're doing something interesting today.
Today we're playing around with some potatoes. Because we're small, some distilleries, you visit Cotswolds, and Cotswolds make a reasonable amount of gin. They'll have a separate still for that, and that makes production sense because you're not pirating your production from one thing to another. We don't have that luxury, so whenever we're not making single malt, we are making something else at the expense of single malt. So I would say we're probably only making something else 3 times a year. We do a couple of gins, one with oolong tea, one with kumquats. They've been pretty popular. My wife loves the kumquat gin. We've got through quite a few bottles of that. Super tasty. Super tasty. And at the minute, there's some potatoes going on there, so I'll let you guess what we might be doing with that, particularly as a Polish distillery. But yeah, it will be, those sort of productions would be 1 or 2 days in a year.
So 1 or 2 casks of these being laid?
We're not even, these won't be casks, no.
Oh yeah, so for
literally a run of spirit.
Oh, they're not casks, so you can even guess, even narrow that down. With So as your standalone products, you have your ex-bourbon. What is your standard release? If you're walking in to buy, what's your standard releases?
If you're walking in to buy from Bimber, you'll probably find the shelves bare. We are in the fortunate position where we make so little comparatively to big distilleries, and we have such a eager fan base, I think is the best way to describe it. Everything sells out very quickly. What we're doing at the minute, before we have a core range, we are thinking about that. It will come, but not until we have enough spirit, enough whiskey to make it with, and an idea of what is core Bimber. Is it just ex-bourbon? I think it could be more than that myself. So you get what's called our small batch products. So our small batch products, just grab 2 here. Ex-bourbon casks, made in the vat that we're talking about. Oloroso casks, so started its life in ex-bourbon, then was re-racked for an additional maturation or finish, as you were, in Oloroso. These small batch products are effectively the mainstay of what we do. The bigger releases. This one was 5,000 bottles. This one was about 900, 980. And we're going to be doing those for a few years whilst we build up the stocks for a core range. Alongside that, you've got the single cask releases, country editions to spread the Bimber love around the world, festivals and whiskey clubs, we do like to support them. The occasional distillery exclusive, we want people to be able to buy something when they're here, and then the underground series. So that's kind of where we're at the minute. A few extra things on the sides, but yeah, effectively, if you want to get into Bimber, we'll always be producing these. There'll be a bit of a gap between them. So it's not like a core range. A core range product for me is something that's always available. So you take a look at, and it's being tested, like Springbank, 10, 12 cask strength, 15, 18. Those are core products. Can't buy them. So when does a core product become not a core product? When it all sells out. So yes, these are what we're going to be doing in the future. There'll be different ones. They won't always just be ex-bourbon Oloroso. There might be some beery things or some different sherries. And then when we get to a point where we feel we A, have enough stock, and B, know what core Bimber is, then you will see products that, if they do sell out, then they'll be back on, in a month or so, we'll make more. A little way to go for that, though.
But in terms of your production, you were saying you basically produce a cask
a day. 50,000 litres,
So it's a long road before you have everything, probably everything that you want to be able to do.
You'll never get to a point where you have everything that you want to be able to do. If I had my way, we'd have a little microbrewery on the side so I could have some fun there. So that's not going to happen. There's a long way to go to get to a point where we physically can make enough to sate demand. That's our primary goal at the minute. So we're looking for a new location, still in London, probably in this part of the world, but we want to double production to 100,000 litres. 2 casks a
2
day.
casks a day.
2 casks a day, woo! Which actually is massive for us. You know,
Yeah.
twice as much Bimber
course.
is massive for us. It's still very small
Yeah.
because you cannot make whiskey like this
No.
at a massive scale. It's just not going to happen.
It's just not going to happen.
But yeah, there's a long way to go. But the journey is the exciting part, right?
This is it.
You
This
know?
is it. Now, I can't. We're going to finish now, but I can't not mention this: the fact that English whiskey is really an exciting part, and
Yeah.
Bimber's really leading the way, or certainly has led the way and is leading the way again. English whiskey is moving on in leaps and bounds.
Yep.
The scene is exciting. How do you feel about that?
I feel very happy about that.
Yeah.
It's delightful to play a part of. You know, English whiskey isn't a new thing. It's just a revival.
Yeah.
Similar to Ireland, where there was a lull, except in England, every distillery went. In 1905, Lee Valley was the last English distillery down in Stratford to close,
Yeah.
and then it was nearly 100 years before English whiskey company St George's brought it back to life and who's followed suit. I think it's the perfect time for English whiskey to come back. There's so much excitement, there's so much passion for whiskey.
Yeah.
And English distilleries currently are doing things differently.
They
And
are.
they're doing it differently because they are all independently owned at present.
Yeah.
No doubt in the future that, of course, will change. But at the minute, all English distilleries are independently owned. So we're all doing quality things, but we're all focusing on what we're making, not on eking out every strand of production.
Yeah.
You know, there's the Lakes are the largest of all the distilleries. They're still small.
Yeah.
You know, by the time they finish their expansion, they'll only be as big as Kilholman,
Yeah.
which is Isla's, smallest distillery.
Yeah.
And that smallness, I think, is a real strength because it means that you can play into the consumer in terms of quality and interest, rather than having to spend most of your production producing just something that's standardized for mass consumption.
Yeah.
There's always a room for that. There's always a market for that. But English whiskey doesn't necessarily need to play into that.
I don't think so either. I think in some ways it's great that Scotland and Ireland have the protection of the technical files, but England doesn't, and they can do exciting
That
things.
will be coming.
It probably will.
It will.
But we'll wait and see how narrow or how broad. the
It's
scope
being
is.
discussed. It's being discussed.
Well, I'm going to go and enjoy more whiskey. Matt, thank you very much, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Take care.
Cheers.
Well, what about that?
There we go. Nice guys. Nice. I can see why they're looking at different location because it's on an industrial estate and it's really, really small. This, don't know exactly. They've got planning permission, but I don't know what they're going to do with that. But the core part of what they're doing at the minute is in London, and you heard him say there he wants to stay in London. They just need bigger premises. So yeah that's important to them.
Great show this week. What's on it next week? We're talking to somebody stateside next week, aren't we? I do believe.
We're talking Texas, and young Carl should have been on to talk about the auction scene of what has been going on for the last month. But he's been in the States as well, so he's coming on next week. So that's it. Now, I'm going to have a little bit of a solo Mckay Cano whiskey, which on the nose ain't great. But then the finish is all right. Yeah.
Isn't that a weird one? How does that work? But
nose not great, palate not great, but it finishes quite nice. It's interesting enough. So yeah, I see Damien Lewis said it's watching it's vodka vodka made from potatoes. So they're Polish vodka, essentially, which pretty much all of the distilling. There's not a huge amount of difference between various places. They all make it from the same kind of thing, just using different techniques. So yeah, so I'm going to go head off, maybe go and get some fajitas or something, Justin. Make it candle food.
Oh boy! Thanks for watching, everybody. Remember to comment, like, and share. We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're on YouTube, we're wherever you get your podcasts from. Ask your speaker. There's Patrick Mulkey saying hello tonight. Keith McCann, thanks a lot. Always remember, Saturday night, 10 p.m. GMT, we are live if we can be, and we usually are. 99.9% of the time. Good night. Take it easy.
Take care, guys.
All the best. All right. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Night. They keep on coming in, you see. They keep on coming in like a mad thing, and I can't keep up with them then.